The Senate filibuster over granting total state income tax exemptions on military retirement pay was broken when the sponsor of the bill agreed to carry it over temporarily. The upper chamber had difficulty for a time preparing to transact business when anti-utility demonstrators made an appearance in the gallery. They carried placards, and a number of them were aimed at Senator Oscar Ray Peden. The senator from Florence asked for a roll call vote to have the placards removed.
That the Secretary of the Senate be instructed to tell the people in the Senate chambers, in the balcony, that all placards must be removed before we begin our business this morning. And I move to that effect, and I would ask for the ayes and the noes, Mr. President.
Mr. President, fellow senators, those placards are personal property of the citizens of the state of Alabama up in the balcony. And I think they should be able to keep those placards as long as they don't display them over the banister and keep them in their lap. And I'd urge you to vote no on his motion.
The demonstrators agreed to remove the placards on a voluntary basis, and Peden withdrew his motion for a roll call vote that would have shown how the Senate felt about the demonstration. Elizabeth Brinkley of Mobile has been instrumental in organizing an anti-utility push in the Mobile area.
We came to Montgomery from Mobile today because we felt that 2 weeks ago, 50,000 signatures were denied the right of being introduced to the floor by the people by me, who spearheaded the project. And the people who worked hard on these petitions were absolutely livid. And they asked, we all came this time in a body, and really a delegation, to let the Senate know that there are 50,000 voters out there, taxpayers, and that they cannot afford these electricity bills.
With the demonstration out of the way, the Senate began passing legislation until it got to a $200 million bond issue measure for school construction. It was on that note it adjourned until Tuesday. The House passed a number of non-controversial bills, and then House Bill 88 providing $600 tuition grants to students who attend private institutions of higher learning surfaced. Sonny Callahan of Mobile urged passage of the bill. Roy Johnson asked that the House adjourn. When that failed, he asked that the bill be read at length. There was a minimum of debate after the bill was read before the lower chamber agreed to adjourn.
Mr. Manley votes aye.
Again, the weather had an impact on what transpired in the House today. The $40 per month cost of living increase for retired teachers was carried over till next week after the bill's sponsor was iced in at his home in Anniston. From the state legislature, George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
This is a movement by a group of individuals who is using this one particular individual as a guinea pig to pull the chestnuts out of the fire in my case. I know we have information to the effect that he represents a group of people.
Do you think that the filing of a suit right now or a legal action right now is untimely?
I would think so, in that our case is on appeal and the appeal has not been heard. We have abided by the rules of the court and we are following the democratic process of appeal, and when our case comes up we plan to argue it further, and I think this is premature that a case would be filed against me to get me removed from the Alabama legislature.
What do you think a suit such as this is doing to you personally?
Well, personally, it's not bothering me at all. I seem to be more accepted and more popular in my district in which I reside and representing the legislature, and officers and members of the House of Representatives and the Senate of Alabama have received me with the greatest amount of respect, and at no time have I been denied of a right to function as a member of the Alabama legislature.
When you see legislation being considered, what do you look for?
Well, of course, basically what I look toward is, read the bill and draw a conclusion as to, excuse me, how I think it's going to affect my constituents in the district. the majority of them, and I try to communicate as much as possible with the people that are going to be affected by the bill. A lot of times it's humanly impossible to see all of them, but I think it's a good idea to go to the people that if a bill is going to affect a certain type of business, I want to try to communicate with those people in that business to get their feeling on it before I reach a final decision.
Do you feel that there's much pressure on you as a member of the Senate by special interests to get legislation passed?
Well, George, of course, we all know that there's considerable amount of special interest groups here in the legislature, and I'm not so sure that there's pressure, but by and large, most everyone has been extremely nice and helpful, and but you know, you always are aware of the special interest groups, and from my observation, I think that maybe some people are influenced by them a little bit more than others, and of course that's going to affect your legislation, whether or not a particular bill is passed or killed here in the Senate. But I personally have not had any real pressure from any of the groups.
We're in an election year, and this is influencing the conduct of quite a few of the people or members of the legislature. How do you view it?
Well, George, of course, it's we're all aware that a number of the senators are running for higher office or a different office, and I think that they themselves would agree that maybe they're more vocal or at this particular stage than maybe they normally would be, but as far as I know, they're all doing a good job here in the Senate, and but it's very easy to observe these guys that are running for higher office, and you know, you really can't blame them, I suppose, but they're very active in the Senate.
I was barely 6 years old the first time I ever ate there. My daddy and I were going fishing early one Saturday morning, and I can still smell the bacon and the waffles as the aroma filled the room. And as a teenager, after a movie, well, me and my date, we'd stop in there for a Coke or a hot dog. These are still some of the fondest memories I've ever known. I guess I've been every place to place and town to town, taking every cooking course around, hoping that when it's all over, someone might come up to me and say, you know, your food tastes just like the copper kettle. There was a place.
That's the music and the words of Auburn student Chuck McDowell's first recording, appropriately called The Kettle's Gone. The January 15th explosion which rocked Auburn is believed by some persons to have occurred either in the basement of or below the copper kettle, and still others have theorized it occurred in a shop next door to the kettle. Whichever is the case, though, the kettle is gone, at least physically. While McDowell's song is not anywhere near the top 40 in Auburn, several AM stations are reporting a large number of requests for it.
So where's the place that we all knew and have grown to love inside our hearts? Well, it's over there, it's over there, way over there, about 4 blocks, where the kettle's gone, yeah, the kettle's gone. Under this name.
But the song is not McDowell's only effort towards the immortalization of the kettle. He's also peddling Copper Kettle Memorial T-shirts. The shirt depicts a kettle with a mushroom cloud emerging from it, and the year is 1958 to 1978, symbolizing the lifespan of the old landmark. The shirts are available in almost any color, and there are even different styles for males and females. Retail price, $4.50. Like the song, the T-shirts have not yet become bestsellers in Auburn, but that doesn't seem to bother McDowell.
How long do you think that this will last?
I don't have a watch on, but no telling, not long. It's just a novelty, and it should be over pretty soon.
No matter how long the fad lasts, most people will agree McDowell has eulogized the copper kettle.
Goodbye, Copper Kettle. It's been a blast.
This is Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News, Auburn.
At approximately 5 p.m. yesterday, Mr. E.O. Sanders discovered the body of his 29-year-old daughter, Susie Bell Sanders, in the bedroom of her home at 3289 McElvis Street in West Montgomery. Death, estimated between 4 and 5 p.m., was caused by strangulation. She'd been sexually molested, and a .38 caliber pistol is reported missing from the scene. Within 2 hours, a suspect, later identified as Arthur James Julius, age 31, a cousin of the victim, was picked up at the Elmore County Work Release Center at Spagna, Alabama, near Draper Prison. He was, at that time, on an 8-hour pass at the time of the attack. Julius is now in the city jail charged with murder as of 3 o'clock this morning.
What were the circumstances surrounding that arrest? How were you able to tell that this man was the one suspected?
He was developed as a suspect shortly after we received the call. He had to be identified. We had another name. And in a matter of checking prison records, we come up with the same description that fit our suspect, who was later became the defendant. He's been, was found here by some of the workmen. He'll be removed from here and taken to the morgue, where the toxicologist will determine the cause of death.
Is foul play suspected?
Well, not at this point. It's awfully cold out here. There's a good possibility of exposure. Got mighty cold last night.
Extension Service officials say there are other goals besides the agricultural dilemma now facing farmers. The Montgomery County Extension Service, as the others across Alabama, will be increasing work in the quality of family life, 4-H, home economics, and community resource development. But it remains the farm that more and more affects lives many miles away from the rural areas where the crops are grown and the livestock is raised.
Dick, it was a disastrous year, and that's the only way I can put it. Our yield was almost 50% below last year's 76 yield. We averaged about 280 pounds of lint per acre as opposed to almost 500 pounds in 1976.
Do you see this continuing for the next year?
Hopefully not. We had a combination of bad weather during the early part of the summer, droughts mainly, and a terrific insect problem. We had an armyworm problem that we could not get under control, and that hurt our crop. That plus the weather was the disaster. We hope that this year we won't see anything like that. Montgomery's growing at such a rapid rate that they're taking over a lot of good land, but the cotton acreage has been declining every year for a number of years, and I think it's because it's becoming so hard to farm, and cotton is such a hard crop to farm that fewer and fewer people are going into cotton, and those that are in cotton today are dropping acreage for other crops, soybeans.
This past 1977 was a pretty tough year as far as soybeans go in Montgomery County in this general area because of the weather and because of insect problems such as that.
Was your yield good per acre?
There's some people had good yield depending on when they got the rain, and when they got the beans in the ground.
What do you forecast personally for beans for next year in this area?
In this area, I believe we'll probably have an increase of acres, although I feel like personally that the farmer needs to decrease as far as beans go to, you know, to get the price back up there where it needs to be.
I think maybe we're going to have some better situations this year with the bug problems, and we are hoping and praying for more rain than we had last summer, so we think it's going to be a bright future for agriculture in Montgomery County as a whole.
There's been late planting almost for 2 years. Do you see the rain extending and late crop preparation or field preparation coming into this next season?
Our weathermen, we hope they cooperate with us. We're way behind now on our land preparation. We need to be getting some land turned, and we're not doing this right now. But I'm in hopes that we can get these crops in on time this year and get our soybeans in May and June, and go ahead. We need to start getting our corn in March, though.
The Extension Service now will be working to get their research and education programs in the hands of the farmers quicker, as every day counts bigger than ever. Dick Bird, WSFA TV News, reporting.
Coach, I promise the Auburn Coliseum will be warmer than this tonight.
Well, I sure hope so. I hope it's warm for us. We need to have a good shooting night against a real good ball club.
Well, you did well down in the alley on Saturday night. How did you think your team played?
Well, we shot exceptionally well. I think we shot a school record of 70%, 69-9, but a lot of it was their overplay defense, and we were going back door and getting some layups, and you know, that's the reason.
The state team is playing good. You've added one freshman to a bunch of guys who were there, and you got them in the race. What's been happening?
Well, we also added a junior college transfer in Calvin Holmes, who started, you know, periodically and sharing a lot of the duties with Al Perry and Greg Grimm. So we've been able to, I think, utilize our talent on hand pretty well with the addition of these couple fine youngsters.
Do you still think it's a conference race, or is it a battle for that, hopefully, that runner-up spot in an NCAA berth there?
Well, you know, if you go by today's standings, it's a conference race. You know, I don't think that anyone wants to concede anything. We're all competitive, and, you know, you never know what's going to happen down the road. Mm-hmm. Alabama obviously has a good basketball team. They beaten us earlier, and I saw them beat Auburn here, and they're a very fine team, and we think we're playing better, and so we just have to wait and see.
How do you think you'll match up with Auburn?
I think we can match up. They're very physical up front and have a very outstanding front line, but you know, we have pretty good size up front also in Ricky Brown and Wiley Peck, who's a local youngster here we think so much of. Mm-hmm. Then Kerry Hooker, Ricky Moss, Walter Wright, you know, so we think we'll match up.
The city of Auburn is busy cleaning up debris today from the natural gas explosion that destroyed several buildings in the downtown Auburn area yesterday morning. It was first reported that an explosion originated in the Copper Kettle restaurant, but after investigation by fire department and gas company officials, it was believed that the explosion occurred in Waldrop's houseware shop adjacent to the restaurant. According to Alabama Gas Company spokesman Jim Alderman, gas company engineers are investigating the exact source of the gas leak, and it will not be known for another day or two exactly where the leak occurred. Alderman said a gas company employee was en route to the scene to investigate the gas odor when the explosion occurred, disclaiming earlier reports that the gas company had delayed in their action. He also said that 2/3 of the service to an estimated 2,700 homes and businesses that were out of service Sunday afternoon and evening was to have been restored by this evening. Auburn Mayor Don Hayhurst says the sanitation workers will be on the job today and tomorrow removing debris from the blast, and that most businesses that suffered damage will not be open till the latter part of this week. Auburn National Bank, which suffered extensive damage to one wall and parts of the ceiling, was open for business today. According to one bank employee, it's a little cold, but other than that, things are running smoothly. Governor Wallace contacted Mayor Hayhurst late last night and offered any assistance that might be needed, and the mayor is checking into possibility of federal funds to pay overtime to city employees helping in the cleanup project. However, the mayor said the governor would have to declare the situation as a disaster area before any federal funds could be secured. This is Emery Stapleton, WSFA TV News in Auburn.
Well, right now, the Alabama Power Company has approximately 2.5 to 3 months cold supply based on anticipated rate of burn. That is, assuming the weather conditions remain as they are without an extended cold snap like we had last year.
Has the recent cold weather made any effect at all?
No, I anticipated or projected use of coal takes into account the normal weather for this time of year.
What happens if the strike continues past the 2.5 to 3 months? What would be the next step?
Well, we are fortunate here in that the Farley plant, the nuclear plant in Dothan, is producing about 13% of electricity used in this state. I understand that some eastern utilities do not have the stockpile that some of the southern utilities have, so we anticipate that they will request President Carter to step into the picture before we get in too bad a shape here.
How does Alabama compare with other states as far as reserves?
We are better. We have probably half a month to a month more reserves because we are already totally just about, with the exception of the 13% and some small amount of hydro, a coal-using company here.
Okay, if the strike does continue, like you said, and Alabama Power begins to run out of coal, is there any way to project how that would affect electric rates?
Well, it would not change the rates as such. What it would do would be change the supply. We would just plain run out of energy to supply the state. The rates would not change pending Public Service Commission hearings and so forth and so on. But we would have blackouts and brownouts simply because there would not be enough energy to be used by everyone in the state. Whatever happened as a result of these contract negotiations with the mine workers, it's reasonable to assume that the price of coal is going to increase. And of course, the price of coal is a very important factor in the cost to produce electricity. So we can all probably anticipate that as a result of these negotiations that the price of electricity is going to be affected, maybe on the upside.
How much of the coal that Alabama Power uses is from Alabama?
Most of it. I don't have a definite percentage to give you, but most of it is from Alabama, and most of Alabama mines are union mines.
Mitchell. McDevitt. Penny and Watson.
I wasn't having the fun I once had in coaching. I'd always enjoyed it.
Frustration?
There's no doubt. There was some frustration. Because I thought we were having 2 great years, really. I thought if I turned it down, I wouldn't sleep good for months. I had to try it.
Had to know.
I had to know. And I don't ever regret going to UCLA. I'll never regret. A lot of wonderful people out there. I don't think I'll ever regret walking away either and coming with these people. One advantage of me coming here, I think that Lee Hunt and Larry Finch, I think we know what it takes to win in major circles. You've taken a transfer student or two, a junior college player or two. I believe. You got to believe. You got to think positive, and we've all...
Not being practical, Junior.
I know you're being practical.
I'm saying that to soar with the Eagles, as you realize, takes an awful long time.
Oh, there's no
In the
doubt.
division, you're going to be Division I.
We're going to be Division
With
I.
the
We're
Sun
going to play
Conference.
the Sun Belt Conference schedule.
It's going to be a real good match. They got 4 or 5 real good wrestlers. In fact, more than that, they got about at least 6 good wrestlers. And if you got 6 good wrestlers, you're always a threat. They got a kid by the name of Stewart at 12. He's good. They got a boy by the name of Ingram at the 45. And they got Norton at 38. And got Countryman in 67. It's going to be a good match. Of course, again, we have little Charlie Grant at 12, and Charlie's coming this way. And we got David at 19. That's going to be a key match there. Greg Johnson, our 38-pounder, will be wrestling Norton, which is a real good wrestler. That'll be a key match. It's going to take everybody. We got some classes that are not real strong. I think they got 1 or 2 that are not real strong. But at the end, the team that's going to win is going to be the team that get a few pins and don't give up any. It's just going to be a good match this evening. It's real tough. I think the fans going to enjoy it. The coaches won't.
If momentum has anything to do with it at all, Alabama would have to be an easy favorite for tomorrow's game. The Crimson Tide is coming right off the big upset of Kentucky. Auburn has lost 2 straight on the road. But you never can tell about an Alabama-Auburn matchup in anything. Alabama coach C.M. Newton says he doesn't know yet whether or not he'll start the 3-guard lineup that worked so well against Kentucky, and he's not sure what will be the matchups on defense. Still, some individuals on both teams are worth taking a look at. The leading scorer and the leading rebounder in the SEC will be on the same court tomorrow. Auburn's Mike Mitchell is the leading scorer. He has averaged more than 24 points a game, and he's showing little signs of a knee injury that hampered his mobility earlier in the year. Auburn will also need some scoring, though, out of guard Stan Pitcavage. Pitcavage has averaged 22.5 points a game for the last 5 games, but Pitcavage will find scoring tough against the Alabama guards, especially Anthony Murray. Auburn coach Bob Davis expects Alabama to press, partly because of the Tide's success against Kentucky, and also because of Auburn's tendency to turn the ball over. Alabama's Reginald King may be the best all-around player in the conference this year. King leads the league in rebounds. He's 3rd in scoring and ranks among the top in field goal shooting. And King seems to play his best in the big games. He was especially effective in Alabama wins over Kentucky and Michigan. Auburn will have to find a way to contain Reginald King. Freshmen could play an important role tomorrow. Both teams have a freshman filling one starting forward spot. Auburn's Earl Banks has showed signs of brilliance this season, but he's lacked consistency. Bobby Caddage will also be available for the Tigers. Caddage has had injury problems, but Davis says he's improving and could start tomorrow. For Alabama, Ken Johnson showed a lot of poise for a freshman by hitting his first 2 shots against Kentucky. He can give Auburn problems. But Davis says matching up against Alabama gives him a lot of problems. C.M. Newton says the same about Auburn. We'll see tomorrow. Dan O'Brien, WSFA TV Sports.
The thing came down in a wooded area about 10 miles south of Tuskegee. Tuskegee police called a bomb squad from Columbus, Georgia. The state fire marshal sent a representative over here, and there were numerous bystanders. But finally, some representatives of NASA came, and they told everybody that there was no danger and no little green men or nothing radioactive aboard the experimental craft.
This is an X-ray telescope from the University of California that's being used to map the X-rays emitted from the Crab Nebulae, which is the remnants of an exploding supernova.
Okay, so what you're saying is that this records X-rays that are emitted from some solar system or some star system. Is that correct?
Yes, they know that there are X-rays emitted from the crab, but what they want to do is map them specifically from which point in the crab they come from. Previous experimenters have discovered them, and each experimenter after is trying to improve on it or do something else with it. And this particular experimenter is trying to map the Crab Nebulae from the emission points of the X-rays.
Your agency knew exactly where this instrument was coming down. Were you tracking it?
Yes, we were tracking it, and we knew approximately. I can't say exactly. I can't say it was going to be between one tree and another, but we knew in a general area within a very small distance where it would land, so that, you know, we keep it out of populated areas for safety.
For a while today, Macon County officials thought they had a bomb on their hands, and for a while they didn't know exactly what they had. But now everything is back to normal until something else comes falling out of the sky. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, Macon County, Alabama.
Well, one thing we're going to work real hard on this year, Ivy, is getting more conventions and tourists into Montgomery. We've got this wonderful civic center down here. We've got a lot of things of interest to people all over the country. The city council has just voted us the tax, proceeds from the tax that the Motel and Hotel Association has voluntarily put on themselves, on their receipts. That's going to amount to around $60,000 or so this year, and we're going to use that to aggressively promote Montgomery as a tourist and convention center.
What is that going to mean to Montgomery?
Well, it just means lots of dollars that wouldn't otherwise get into our economy. Now, in 1977, we had 20,000 more convention delegates in Montgomery than we had in 1976. So we're moving in the right direction, and we're just getting started.
You have some specific plans?
Well, the most specific plans are to send our representative, Jack Posey, all over this country looking for conventions and tourists, publicizing Montgomery and the things that we have to offer in every way possible. As an example, he's just returned from San Antonio a day or two ago. He secured 3 conventions for us at San Antonio. The JCs will meet here in Montgomery this year. Will be 3,000 delegates. That's the first time they've met with us in a number of years because we just simply haven't had the facilities. Now we have the facilities, and we've got to work hard to attract more and more people like that.
Both Holmes and Washington County, Florida, are preparing for the water to come down from Geneva, and come it is. The Pea River in Elba is retreating. Floodwaters have been pumped back over the levee and into the river. By noon today, the river was running 5 to 7 times faster than normal, but for the most part within its banks. The crest on the Pea and the Choctawhatchee at Geneva was 31 feet at noon today, supposedly a crest. However, it was still rising. Houses on the Pea River that were evacuated yesterday are now half full of water today. Residents are waiting now for the water to go down so cleanup work can begin. On the Double Bridges Creek, on the Choctawhatchee and the Pea River, forced water back up the creek and flooding began in Geneva's north side. A dozen more families had to be evacuated. The water began to rise about midnight, and by early morning today, more houses were half full of water. 30 miles south of Geneva, in Caryville, Florida, the vigil is on. The level of several feet above flood stage is expected today, and some areas are already flooded. Houses on the Chattahoochee and several trailer parks have been evacuated. The Chattahoochee is carrying all of the water from both the Pea River and numerous smaller streams. In Caryville, the river has spread over 1.5 miles wide and is rising rapidly. The crest is expected to hit Caryville Sunday morning. River reports, coming in every few hours, keep raising the predicted crest level. The residents of Caryville fear the Geneva water may bring the crest to more than 18 feet, 2 feet higher than it is now. That would equal a crest level of 1975, and that was the disastrous year that put the entire city underwater. So far, 25 families have been evacuated in Caryville. However, there are a lot more that are planning to do so before Saturday night. Clark Edwards, WSFA TV News, Caryville, Florida.
I recall that he had asked me in the sense of calling a member of the committee for the purpose of convincing them, and not necessarily to ask them yes or no. And I told him that I thought, as he said, that the call would probably be misinterpreted, and therefore I thought it was improper and could not do it. And I told him this was a very difficult request to turn down, in the sense that you're turning down a request by the President of the United States, that I was praying for him. I was sorry that these matters had been heaped upon him, or visited upon him, as he said, because in light of this request, I could reflect back and recall after I was shot in Maryland in '72, there was no man in government that was nicer to me and more helpful to me than the President of the nation, Mr. Nixon.